Hi, everyone. Today is the second episode, if I may call it that, of the Demystifying Tech series. And today I'm going to talk about something, tell you a story about something, which is a word which you would have heard many, many times in the last 2 years, especially in the last year. And no, the word is not vaccine, it's not COVID, but it is linked to all of them. And the word is mRNA. Now, mRNA is actually a fascinating technology, and it's just amazing and how the scientists have been able to bring something in like almost no time, which has helped us stop this huge pandemic. Uh, so today we are going to go into mRNA because it is a fascinating story, and it is probably the big technology of the future. Uh, Now, the M in the mRNA stands for messenger, and so I call this story How the Messenger Became King. So let me start with a quote by one of my all-time favorite authors, a doctor, Dr. Siddharth Mukherjee. Uh, his first book was about cancer and was one of the best books ever written. But it is his second book, which is called The Gene and Intimate History. He says this statement. He says, three profoundly destabilizing areas ricochet through the 20th century, trisecting it into three unequal parts: the atom, the byte, the gene. These three are the fundamental units of matter: information and life. Atom for matter, byte for information, and the gene for life. And while a lot has been written about the transformational power of the first two, the atom and the byte, it is the third one, the gene, which actually promises to transform our lives the most. And that's why Siddharth Mukherjee says unequal parts. The gene probably is the biggest of them all. And it's interesting. I spent half my time in Cambridge, and I actually live Cambridge in UK, and I live very close to this pub called the Eagle. And it was there that Watson and Crick, the famous Watson and Crick, with some actually unthanked help from a third scientist, a lady, Rosalind Franklin, who conjured up the double helix structure of the DNA, which you just see on this slide here. And it kick-started the discipline of genetics. Now, DNA solved one of the greatest puzzles in biology. It was the code or information to produce the building blocks of life, which are proteins. But its discovery gave rise to a fresh puzzle. DNA lives in the nucleus of the cells, but proteins are not in the nucleus. They are created in the cytoplasm, a totally different part of the cell. There had to be something that somehow carried this DNA information from the nucleus to the protein factory. In 1961, there were two French scientists, Jacques Monod, I hope I'm pronouncing this right, I'm sure I'm not, and Francois Jacob, who solved this puzzle by discovering this new molecule, the now famous messenger RNA, a specialized molecule that carried the source code of life from the nucleus to the proteins, and therefore the M denoted its lowly status as the messenger. Now, if the pandemic is the greatest disruptor of our times, inarguably, the mRNA vaccine is perhaps its greatest story, as I told you. It is the story of fundamental, painstaking scientific research and struggle of 40 years, which blossomed into this planet-saving vaccine when its time came. And the story starts in 1978, when Hungarian scientist Katalin Karikó first proposed that synthetic or manufactured RNA could actually do something useful. Most of the scientific establishment was focusing on DNA. That was the star, the sexy one. And so this whole synthetic RNA thing was poo-pooed by them for decades. They pulled her grant back, Kathleen Caricos. They demoted her a few times, fired her many times, but Caricos soldiered on. And only in the early part of this century, in the early 2000s, she and a research partner, Drew Weissman, tweaked one of the nucleosides to sneak it past the cell's formidable defenses. And therefore figured out how it could actually take something from place A to place B. A group of postdocs, professors, and venture capitalists noticed this. They took the word mRNA, mangled the words, modified an RNA, and created a company called Moderna, which you would have heard of. Almost simultaneously, another pair of RNA gurus, a husband-wife pair of Ugur Sahin and Özlem Turki, Turkish-German, founded a company to develop mRNA-based treatments for cancer and called it BioNTech. Another company you would have heard of. Now, there's a great writer in the Atlantic called Adam Maeda, and he describes this mRNA, this magic of mRNA best. And he says, the dream of mRNA persevered in part because its core principle was tantalizingly simple, even beautiful. The world's most powerful drug factory might be inside all of us. People rely on proteins for just about every bodily function. mRNA tells our cells which proteins to make. Now, with human edited mRNA, we could theoretically commandeer and order our cellular machinery to make just about any protein under the sun, what we wanted. So you could manufacture molecules to repair organs or direct blood flow, or you could tell your cells to cook up an off-menu protein, which our immune system would learn to identify as an invader and destroy. And that is what the mRNA wizards did in early 2020 after the pandemic struck. On January 11 of 2020, actually, Chinese researchers very quickly published the genetic sequence of the 2019 novel coronavirus, as it was called. And it took just 48 hours for Moderna to finalize the construct of the vaccine after that. And by February, 1 month, it was shipped out for clinical trial. This blinding speed is because of the way mRNA vaccine works. It is like injecting a software code in your cells. The mRNA, or the software code, directs the cells to synthesize a protein, in this case, the spike protein of the coronavirus, and the protein factory in the cell mass produces it. Our cells, in turn, kick their immune system into high gear and start producing antibodies to the spike protein, which has been produced by the mRNA order. Once this minute amount of injected mRNA is over, the cells stop making that protein, but the immune response still persists to seek and destroy the COVID virus if it trespasses into the cell. There comes again, dares come again. So the mRNA is an entirely different mechanism to build immunity. And its story will not end when the pandemic ends. In fact, the story has just started. Scientists at Yale are close to an mRNA vaccine or a weapon against malaria, which is actually the world's most destructive disease. It kills most people in the world. BioNTech is working to create on-demand, individualized proteins against particular tumors in a way to fight cancer. Multiple sclerosis and other autoimmune diseases are also being targeted with tailored mRNA therapies. Now, this is the beauty of this generic software code, as Tureki says. mRNA can be broadly transformational. In principle, everything you can do with protein can be substituted by mRNA. It is a tremendous scientific breakthrough, but like many of them, this overnight success took 40 years to happen. And again, I was privileged in Cambridge to listen to Katalin Kareko. She came there just a month back. She was awarded this year's Stephen Hawking's Fellow in her 70s after so much disappointment. And in fact, she used to be called the mRNA hustler because she just for 40 years persisted in giving mRNA its place in the sun. And when the time came, as I said, this new software for the cell allowed us to create the vaccine, which defeated or almost defeated COVID. So that, my friends, is the story and the demystification of mRNA. And I hope it fascinates you to learn more. I write about technology and the stories about technology and demystifying them. And for you to know more, you could go to my website, www.jaspreetbindra.com, read my book, The Tech Whisperer, or follow me on this YouTube channel, because almost every week I will be putting up new videos on technology and their demystification. Thank you very much for listening to me. Have a good day.